Indian Creek 8th grade students, it's Professor Blazek, and I'm here today with our daily e-learning lesson. It is Wednesday, April 29th. I hope everyone's been having a great morning so far. I know here it's been pretty much raining all day and it's supposed to do the same. Hopefully you all are seeing some better weather, be able to get outside for a little bit. But for now, we're going to talk about our ELA and social studies updates. So why don't we just jump right into what we're going to be talking about today. So we had 42 out of 51 students who submitted yesterday's ELA attendance. Another good job. Plenty of people coming in, over 80%. That's great. We'll talk about some of the journal responses in a minute or so here. And then only 5 people who completed the Chapter 7 response for Animal Farm. It's one of those where, like I said, we're sending out, or I'm sending out these optional assignments for people who want to get extra practice, get the chance to boost that grade up. So the 5 of you who completed it, thank you very much. I admire your work ethic and your willingness to do some extra. If you're someone who wanted to do that but didn't get the chance to turn it in yet, you absolutely still can do that. And like I said, it's a great opportunity to get your grade a boost here, doing those optional assignments, work on those skills so that you're ready to go next year for high school. So that was the review from yesterday. And then so for today, our class plan, we'll talk about the Google form for today. We will go over the allegory chart sections that were homework from yesterday, talking about the dogs and about Squealer. We will preview Chapter 8 of Animal Farm, which is the assignment today to read Chapter 8. And then there is an optional Unit 11 vocab word roots review running until tomorrow. So for those of you who want to take advantage of that, I'll just briefly touch on that again. And then into social studies, we are transitioning into something new. And it is a current events day today. We haven't gotten to do one of those in a while. And the article that I was able to find, I think will be one that a lot of you will find interesting. At least I hope. So that's the plan for today. And so briefly, let's just talk about some of the journal highlights from yesterday. The 2 options were you were asked to create a group of 3 people, 3 celebrities, musicians, just 3 people in general. You had 2 options. The first one, you were looking for a group that you were just going to want to hang out with, who would be your quote unquote squad. We had a lot of very interesting responses. These were just some of the ones that I included. Obviously, there were a lot more. So we had The Rock, Sylvester Stallone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. This person obviously going for the whole action movie vibe. Definitely would not want to mess with this person's squad because, they could absolutely take me down. We had another person who went with the classic rock genre who said they would want to create a squad with Slash, Gene Simmons, and Bret Michaels. I'm sure a lot of you could guess probably who that came from, but I just thought that was very, very funny and definitely an interesting grouping. Then we had Christina Aguilera, Margot Robbie, and Ian Somerhalder was another interesting one. Harry Styles, J-Law, and Will Smith, I think could be an interesting group. Then we had Blake Lively, Leighton Meester, and Ellen Pompeo, so going with a little Gossip Girl / Grey's Anatomy combo. And then, of course, fittingly, I had to include the person who said their squad would be Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson, or the 3 main stars. Those were highlights in terms of creating your own personal squad from any 3 people. And then the other option you had to write about was if you needed to get a group of 3 people together to just get some laughs. I think it had said that either you or a friend was kind of down in the dumps and you needed to get some people who were going to brighten things up. Who would you go with? So we had someone who went with the all-fictional character list of Mark Sloan, Dwight Schrute, and Clark Griswold, going with Grey's Anatomy, The Office, and then obviously Christmas Vacation. Definitely lots of laughs coming from that group. Another person said they would go with Steve Carell, Ken Jeong, and Chris Rock. Kevin Hart was a popular one, so he's in actually 3 of these combinations. The first one with Gabriel Iglesias, a.k.a. Fluffy, and Adam Sandler. We had another one where it was Kevin Hart, Will Ferrell, and Ellen DeGeneres. And then finally Kevin Hart, Chris Hemsworth, and Jimmy Fallon. And then the last group on here, Jim Gaffigan, Trevor Noah, John Mulaney. 3 very, very funny stand-up comedians. Lots of comedians in these answers, and also a lot of people who were repeated across a number of responses. So for example, on here, I can tell you that Gabriel Iglesias was brought up in a number of other responses. Same with Adam Sandler, and same with Will Ferrell. So those are just some highlights from the journal responses from yesterday with the 2 different options that you had. All right, so now we can jump over to our Google form for today. Talking about Animal Farm. The assignment for today, please read Chapter 8. It starts on page 31. I'm not sure why it's not clicking on through here, but anyway, it starts on page 31, and I want to say that the audiobook version starts around an hour and 58, an hour and 59 minutes. This is a longer chapter. The audio version, I want to say, is about 24, 25 minutes. But again, lots of important things going on, and so that would be the explanation for why it is a little bit longer. Part 2, just a reminder of the optional vocabulary review running on quizzes. And then, so your attendance response for today is just one option, and you are being given the chance to hang out with 3 animated characters. So they have to be animated, but they do not have to all be from the same movie or TV show. So you can pick a variety. For example, it's not like you have to choose 3 characters from The Simpsons or 3 characters from one of the Disney movies. You can mix and match as far as that goes, but you're given the chance to hang out with any 3 animated characters. Which 3 are you going to go with? And so I will have highlights of those responses on the stream for tomorrow. All right, so now we can jump on over to Animal Farm, and I'll pause here for a second for those of you who want to open up your allegory chart, because yesterday's assignment was to fill in the allegory chart for Squealer and for the dog. So I'll scroll down here. We can see Squealer. All right. And so Squealer is one, along with Minimus, actually, who, depending on how you feel or who you believe or, just your general impression, they represent propaganda and the Russian press. And I can see arguments both ways. So I'm just going to include both of them for both of their boxes here. So as long as you have one in one and one in the other, or both in both, you're doing it 100% correct. But Squealer, representing propaganda in the Russian press. For my explanation, I said that Stalin was in control of the press and of propaganda when he was in power. Everything that was created was done to make him appear as a great and admirable leader. So the newspapers, and then obviously the pieces of propaganda that he put out, a number of which we looked at in social studies, they all make Stalin out to be, the father of communism, the father of Russia, this great and admirable figure. And so this is very much mirrored in what Squealer does in the story, because he is constantly manipulating the other animals into believing things that we just know are not true about Napoleon, who, remember, is Joseph Stalin. And he abuses his standing as a quote-unquote trusted voice by taking advantage of his position because he knows the other animals will follow what he says. So Squealer is basically Napoleon's mouthpiece. He gets the message out. He convinces other animals of things. He talks to them about the choices that are being made and how the farm is being run. And he's always doing it in a way that is meant to convince the other animals that he's right and that Napoleon is good. And he's always talking positively of Napoleon and trying to make him out to be this great leader, takes on the sacrifice for himself, that he, should just be followed. And this was much of what the Russian press and propaganda did during this time. And obviously you all have figured out much of what Squealer says is a lie. But he knows that if he explains things to the other animals, because he's smarter, because they're not that intelligent, they will eventually believe what he says. And that is kind of how the Russian press worked under Stalin. You know, if you're getting the same story from the Russian press every single day, especially if you're a lower working class person who might not be as educated or free thinking, you're going to believe what you read and what you hear. So that is the role that Squealer is playing in the story so far. And then the other character that I had asked you to fill in for your allegory chart yesterday were the dogs. And I'm sure most of you had figured out that they represent the Russian secret police. And for my explanation, I just talked about how Stalin used the secret police like his own bodyguards and enforcers. They were the ones who were tasked to find and either kill or expel his enemies. And so there was a lot of fear for the secret police because they were basically given free rein, could do whatever they want, and they were very, very violent and killed or, expelled a number of enemies of Stalin while he was in control. And this is just like the dogs because they listened to every one of Napoleon's commands. They only serve him. In the last chapter, chapter 7, we had the purge scene where they kill all of the animals who are said to be traitors. They confess to some crimes they've committed. The dogs are the ones who carry out the violent act and who kill them. And so this creates a lot of fear for the dogs among the other animals. They're very intimidating, and they are part of why the other animals follow the pigs, because there's always that threat of violence from the dogs, just like there was always that threat of violence from the secret police if you were someone who spoke out against Stalin. So Squealer representing propaganda and the Russian press, and then the dogs representing the secret police. That was the assignment for yesterday for your allegory chart. So hopefully everyone had those connections, but if not, that's why we're going over this, just to give you that support as well. So then today, your assignment is to read chapter 8 of Animal Farm. And so for our preview, some things to look out for. As we've said in the last couple chapters, be looking out for the changes that you see to life on the farm, the commandments of animalism. I had mentioned in the last video that we would see one of them changing very quickly in chapter 8. But just in general, how is life changing? Are the pigs continuing to abuse their power to get more rights and privileges? Are the other animals seeing other things kind of go by the wayside? We talked about how food supply was going down. Animals were beginning to get hungrier. We had the whole issue with the hens being asked to have more of their eggs taken away to be sold. So just what other changes do you see to life on the farm? Keep an eye out for the timber pile negotiations. Just to preview it, there is a pile of timber that Napoleon is negotiating to sell to either Frederick or Pilkington, and just how that all kind of plays out. That's a big chunk of the chapter. And then at the end, there is a quote-unquote illness that Napoleon comes down with. And so just to be clear on what is happening with that. So lots of things going on in chapter 8. Like I said, it's one of the longer chapters of the book, but a lot of important things happening. So I hope you enjoy it while you are reading or listening to it. And again, that is your assignment for today. And then tomorrow, I'll be going over all the other stuff to do with chapter 8 then. So then the optional assignment for today is a live quizzes game that's being played until 10 a.m. tomorrow. You can see here the code 722892. It's 28 questions, and the requirement is that you get a 70% in order to get full credit for this assignment. So if you need, I would highly suggest looking over the intro sheet and the wordage for this unit. If you need to review them or didn't get the chance to fill out your intro sheet, I talked about it towards the end of the stream yesterday, so you can go check that out there. Hopefully we'll give you all the information you need, and then you can take this quiz. And again, you can take it multiple times. This is not like a one shot and then you're done. Student attempts are unlimited. So even if you struggle the first time, want to try and take it again, like I said, all these optional assignments are meant to be here to help you have the chance to boost your grade. So hopefully we'll see more than the 5 people who did the writing response yesterday take advantage of this. And again, I just want to thank those of you who are doing all these optional assignments. I very much admire your work ethic and appreciate you taking the time to continue to push yourself and try and make yourself better and be prepared for high school. So that's it for language arts for today. Read Chapter 8 of Animal Farm, and then if you want to do this optional quiz, it is there for you, and it's running until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So then now we can transition over to social studies. And the first thing to remind you to do is please turn in your civil rights activist slides that we've been working on. You had the extra couple days. Hopefully everyone was able to use them, make their slides as strong and as well edited and informative as possible. But make sure you get those turned in. And then today's assignment, we are doing a current events article. It's here on Newsella, and it is how bored families are getting through the coronavirus lockdown. So for those of you who haven't seen, this is an image from this family in, I think it's North Carolina, doing the Quarantine Olympics. Very funny set of videos. I very much enjoyed watching them. But just talking about some of the things that families are doing, some of the kind of viral videos and other things that people are creating here during this lockdown. And so you can read about that. There are a number of different things that are talked about. And then here is the actual Google Doc that was sent out. And there are 2 questions for you to answer. And I threw in, for those of you, it talks about how there are, video remixes of popular songs. A person went through and remade The Simpsons introduction in, live form. I would also recommend seeing the Some Good News video series from John Krasinski. Very, very worthwhile watch, in my opinion. And then your 2 questions are, what new entertainment discoveries, activities have you found during the quarantine? I know we had a journal response in language arts on this same type of theme earlier, but it's been at least a week since then. And, that was just more what are the things that you were doing. But this could also just be other things you've discovered, video series you're watching, shows, other activities that you're discovering or rediscovering during the quarantine. And then do you think you will continue doing them after the pandemic is over? Some people mention they're exercising more every day. Do you think that you're going to keep that up once you don't have that whole lockdown situation in place? Or are you thinking you're doing it more because of the situation that we're in? Are they truly habits you're creating or just things you're doing now in the moment? And then question 2, what ways do you think life will change forever as a result of this pandemic and why? And there are a lot of different ways you can go with this. I'm sure a lot of you have been keeping up with the news that some states are slowly starting to reopen. There's talks about certain businesses being allowed to open up. For example, people are talking about allowing restaurants to open up, but then only at a certain capacity. And it's, what do you think restaurants are going to be able to do moving forward? Because most restaurants can't afford to run if they're only allowed to seat half as many people as they were before. Either the food will have to get way more expensive or they just won't be able to make it. And so, is that a type of business that's going to change forever? I've even heard there are people who say like something as simple as shaking hands might go away because that's a very easy way to spread disease. And so are we going to change the way that we greet people? There are other people who I'm sure some of you have seen that, like, movie theaters. Is this going to kind of go by the wayside because it's an enclosed space, and now that we have streaming services and things like that, is going to the movies going to kind of become something that's totally in the past? They're talking about airplanes. Some people are saying, how are airplanes ever going to be able to fly again because you're in a confined space? And, do they remove some seats and still try and fly people? In which case, the price of an airline ticket's going to have to go way up. Or is it something to where you're only going to be able to travel those long distances on boats? But even those present problems. So just, a number of different ways that you can look at. And obviously, I think that we're all going to agree that life is going to change moving forward because of this pandemic. And so I'm just interested to hear how you all think that life is going to change, because when you're my age, you could look back on this time and life could be incredibly different. Thinking about when you were 10, 12 years old versus, like I said, when you're in your 20s and 30s, there could be a lot of things that are gone and a lot of things that have totally changed. So just more of a chance to just brainstorm and talk about some of the things that you think will change because of this pandemic and why. So current events for social studies, I'll have some of the answers from what you all have been doing, and then just how you think life is going to change on the stream tomorrow. All right, so for language arts, you can get your allegory chart filled in for the dogs and for Squealer, a preview of Chapter 8, so please read Chapter 8 of Animal Farm, and then if you would like to take that quiz on vocab unit 11, I would just advise reviewing your word roots before you take it, and remember you can take it more than one time to try and get that 70%. And then social studies, read the article on Newsela, and then answer these two questions, and make sure that you get your civil rights activist slides submitted as well. All right. Otherwise, that's all I have for you for today. I'll be back tomorrow with our next stream. I hope everyone has a safe and healthy rest of your day. And until next time, this is Professor Blazek signing off.